And welcome back, everyone. I'm Jeff Hollinger, joined by Dr. Andra Gillespie. Dr. Gillespie, give me your overview now as we are at 13 minutes after 10 o'clock. We have been in the midst of this now for about 3 hours.
Well, we're not surprising that no race is being called at this point. It's also not surprising that of the Democrats, Raphael Warnock is doing the best. It's not surprising that that Senate race looks like it may be headed toward a runoff. And by that, I mean both candidates right now are under 50%. There is still time. The Libertarian candidates are performing differently in both the gubernatorial and the Senate race, so it looks like Shane Hazel is not going to be an impact in the gubernatorial race, but Chase Oliver does have an opportunity to play spoiler here.
And play spoiler with Herschel Walker in particular, because most of the Libertarian voters, probably 90%, are Republicans to begin with. Those Republican votes that might have gone for Herschel Walker go for Oliver.
Well, I mean, so part of this is just ideological inclination. So libertarians with their beliefs in small government would be more closely aligned with Republicans than Democrats. So it seems more likely that the defections would go in that particular direction. And then we're looking at the drop off of the votes. We'll have to examine this in greater detail later when we get a look at exit poll data and other types of information. But there probably are a number of voters who may have voted for Brian Kemp in the gubernatorial race who voted for Chase Oliver in the Senate race. There were some who maybe voted for Raphael Warnock, and I think that there are others who probably just didn't vote in the Senate race at all.
Your view of the gubernatorial race at this point?
You know, right now it's looking very good for Brian Kemp. Shane Hazel did not play a spoiler role. I think he did not do himself any favors in the debate where he kept on interrupting people and looked like a bully and was guffawing during the whole time. And that's the reason why he's not having the impact that I think he would have wanted to have. I think the thing that's most surprising about this race is not that Abrams is losing, but right now, the last time I checked the Secretary of State's reports, Abrams actually had fewer votes than Charlie Bailey and Jen Jordan, which is a surprise. And so we're going to be spending a lot of time post-election unpacking why this is happening.
We're not throwing any dirt on her campaign yet. We're not burying her, saying that she cannot win tonight. But is this campaign more about Brian Kemp, that he stood up to Donald Trump, that he had a record to run on, that the economy kept the state open, those kinds of issues, that she wasn't able to find the same kind of traction that she was 4 years ago?
Well, it was going to be harder for her as the challenger to gain that type of traction. Yeah. Last time it was an open seat contest, so you have two candidates who've never been governor before running against each other. This time she's running against an incumbent who's seasoned and who's had an opportunity to be governor. People have seen him and they may be comfortable with how he has performed. They at least know what they're getting. And so that's very different when Abrams is making promises. Also, this is a more challenging environment nationally for Democrats. And in 2018, it was a more challenging environment for Republicans. So she doesn't have the wind at her back in the same way that she did in 2018. And so, you know, those fundamentals make this a very, very different race.
I found myself thinking 4 years in advance as I watched this race tonight about Democrats and Republicans who will be running for, governor. I mean, I think it's going to be very intriguing to see who those are that queue up for an opportunity to run.
Oh yeah, I mean, so we don't want to put a postmortem yet on.
We're not doing that. No.
On the Democrats, but suffice to say, the Democratic Party of Georgia now in 2022 was in a lot different place than it was in 2012, and so the idea of there being a bench, I think, is actually much more realistic now than it was a decade or a decade and a half ago.
How about nationally? Anything catch your eye tonight? New York gubernatorial race. What does it look like?
Kathy Hochul was in the lead. Last I checked, they were still making it too close to call. The exit polls suggest stasis in many places. There may be one place where there is a pickup. I think there's another chance where there may be a pickup that could actually kind of still leave it pretty even. So I think we're not going to see a lot of change in the Senate, but it doesn't take much for the balance of power to shift in the Senate. So we have to wait for all of the election results to come in.
Any trends on Fetterman versus Oz?
The exit polls suggest that Fetterman may have an advantage. And the last I checked, which was probably about 5 or 10 minutes ago, he was up in the polls. But there were still hardly, any votes left. There are some mini votes left to be counted in the state, so it's much too early to call.
And there's a lot of people that believe that a referendum is being made on the MAGA Republicans in the state of Arizona with Kari Lake, the former anchorwoman, running.
Well, yeah, I mean, so, there are consequences to that type of election, whether or not the governor or the secretary of state would stand in the way of certifying election results that they disagreed with or that weren't for their particular team. That race is going to be incredibly close. And so I think ultimately at the end of the day, people will look at Donald Trump's choices to see how well they fared. And there will be an indication sort of how reasoned some of those choices were and whether or not the results actually fall towards predictable lines. Where we could talk about, certain candidate qualities like experience and gaffes and other types of things, or whether people are being carried over by the strength of the support of Donald Trump's base.
Dr. Andra Gillespie, thank you. We're going to take a break right now. We will continue. Decision 2022 continues right here, right now on 11 Alive.